The next resource person is Dr. Raja Raman, a professor of the English department, Annamalai University. Raja Raman has specialized in American literature and British literature. He has attended many international and national seminars and conferences. In fact, Sir have also conducted many seminars. So Sir have a teaching experience of 20 years. And with this, Sir have over 36 publications. So I leave the platform to you, Sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, respected organizers of this program, dear participants, good evening, every one of you. I would like to focus on how literary research is conducted and what are the principles of inclusive language. This is what I aim at during this session. See, as far as literary research is concerned, whatever we do, the kind of research that we conduct in literature must have a thesis statement. We call it a thesis statement. So there are various nomenclatures employed in research. In scientific research or some other research, they call it hypothesis. But as far as literary research is concerned, we call it a thesis statement. Every thesis must have a thesis statement because the research progresses from the thesis statement. The thesis statement is said to be the major controlling idea of a thesis. So whenever we write a research, we begin elsewhere, either in the beginning of the introduction or in the middle or in the end of the introduction. We begin the sentence like this: the purpose of the thesis, the purpose of the study, the aim of the study. We use different words. Instead of purpose, we say aim, the objective. We use different words, but this statement, the purpose of the thesis, is to analyze, is to discuss. So the purpose of the thesis is to, so this is where we begin the major controlling idea of our thesis. See, we choose, for example, we choose a writer. We choose a writer. After choosing the writer, we select the works that we are going to focus on. So first we choose the writer. After choosing the area of research, then we choose the writer. For example, if we choose American literature, then we choose the writer. For example, Ernest Hemingway or some other writer. Hemingway, for example, Hemingway. Then I have to select the novels that I'm going to work upon on Ernest Hemingway. So, because Hemingway might have written more than 25 novels, I cannot take the whole corpus of Ernest Hemingway for my research. Hence, I confine myself to 6 novels or 8 novels or 10 novels based on my topic. So I choose the novels of Hemingway. Then I focus on the attitude, my attitude towards the novels, towards the chosen novels, towards the selected novels of Hemingway. This is how your research is set to progress. This is how we arrive at a thesis statement. So, every subject must have an attitude. Every subject, whatever subject we make, the subject will have an attitude. Here, the purpose of the thesis is to. So, I have stated the purpose of the thesis is to what? Is to analyze. Is to analyze what? Is to analyze the feministic overtones. So my focus is now on feministic overtones, or the overtones of war, overtones of war, treatment of war. Here I confine to Hemingway's treatment of war in the select novels. So I confine myself. See, there might be, then, for example, another topic, treatment of love. I am confining myself to love. How Hemingway has treated love in his novels. So this is how I arrive at a statement. After carefully reading the author, knowing about the author, then I choose the select works of a particular writer. Then I proceed in choosing my attitude towards the works that I have chosen for analysis. Then I arrive at a thesis statement. See, the thesis statement that I arrive at in the initial stages of my research is not the one that I will retain until the completion of my thesis, because the thesis statement is set to change until I submit my thesis. Because sometimes I may arrive at different attitudes towards the subject I have chosen. So hence, after carefully, see, it's a carefully thought out statement, because this is the statement from where everything comes in. So the thesis statement is said to be the central part of the thesis. So that's why I am telling you, I define the thesis statement as the major controlling idea of a thesis. See, from words to thesis, WORDS, words to thesis. See, words make sentences. We make a sentence using words. Words make a sentence. Sentences make paragraphs. Paragraphs make essays. Or else paragraphs make chapters. Chapters make a thesis. So from word to a thesis. From word to a thesis. See, in the case of a paragraph, the controlling idea of a paragraph is called a topic sentence. The controlling idea of a paragraph is called a topic sentence. The topic sentence needs to be supported with a specific evidence. In the similar way, I make a thesis statement, and the thesis statement needs to be supported with a specific evidence throughout the thesis. So that is why I call the thesis statement as a major controlling idea of a thesis. So in a literary research, for whatever genre we take up, either poetry, drama, or novel, whatever be it, we must make a clear, precise statement, a clear, precise thesis statement. See, only when you have a clear thesis statement, you will have a good thesis. You will arrive at a good thesis, an appreciable thesis, when you have a clear statement, a crystal clear statement. That is what I call as thesis statement. I repeat it again. It is said to be, the thesis statement is said to be the major controlling idea of a thesis. Then I come to what are all the principles of inclusive language. See, when we look at the principles of inclusive language aims to be respectful to others by treating language describing individual and group identity with a kind of sensitivity, and also by avoiding bias that could make some people feel excluded. So writers who strive for inclusivity in language recognize that their audience includes people who come from many different and sometimes multiple backgrounds and experiences. So we need to follow certain principles which would be of immense help to writers choosing inclusive language with regard to race and minority, religion, gender, sexual orientation, ability, age, and economic or social status. All these guidelines are necessarily generalized. Writers should exercise judgment in choosing inclusive language and consider the particular context and audience they are writing for. So we need to consider whether terms that specify a subject's ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, disability, age, or economic or social status are meaningful to the context, because including such information may imply that this characteristic places the subject outside the norm. For example, many gender-specific terms can be avoided, can be reworded, or rather they can be reworded for gender neutrality. For example, human-made can be used in place of man-made. So we need to avoid using man to mean human beings, humankind, humanity, or people. In the similar way, gender-specific terms that refer to persons of known gender may be appropriate. For example, an individual might identify as American or Indian, but a non-specific term needs to be employed. A non-specific term is a more inclusive ways in which you can describe a person of unknown gender or a population of mixed genders. And we need to avoid using gender-specific terms, for example, poetess, policeman, to refer to people. We need to be precise. Broad terms applied to diverse populations may require more specificity. We need to be more specific. For example, terms such as a Muslim community or Native American language incorrectly coincide diverse populations and traditions. Be specific, and if possible, use the subject's preferred term. For example, Indian Muslims, Dravidian languages, like that. So to avoid perpetuating stereotypes, we need to refrain from making generalizations about group identities. Then the next rule is to choose terms of identity that respect one's subject. See, when we use people, for example, first language people, for example, a person with diabetes, a person on probation, a person with certain diseases. The subject is not defined, first of all, by a single aspect of their experience. When you use identity first language, the identity is the focus. Identify first language is preferred by some individuals or groups opting to claim or choose the identity. Then the next point is that we need to be thoughtful about capitalization and styling. These are the principles of inclusive language. We need to be thoughtful about capitalization and styling. The dictionary includes many terms that denote identity. Generally, capitalizing them only if they derive from proper nouns. For example, Indian, Egyptian. When the dictionary gives both capitalized and lowercase forms as options, let us choose one, and we need to be consistent in using the same way in the whole thesis. We are not supposed to shift from uppercase to lowercase or vice versa. So we need to be consistent in our usage of the particular word or particular term. When the dictionary notes that one form is the commonly used words, generally use the more common form. But when you are working directly with an author or discussing a person or community whose preferences are known, follow that preference. For example, some readers use deaf to refer to the deaf community and deaf culture, but deaf refer to hearing loss, and individuals who strongly identify as culturally deaf may prefer deaf. We need to avoid language or punctuation that undermines a subject's identity. We are not to place quotation marks around or italicized words used to define a person's or group's identity or to indicate a transgender person chosen name or pronoun, even when those terms are called as neologisms. That is, terms that do not yet appear in the dictionary. Then the next principle is to minimize pronouns that exclude. The writers wishing to use inclusive pronouns sometimes use both feminine and masculine pronouns. Use only feminine pronouns or alternate between feminine and masculine pronouns. So writers who aim to use a non-gender specific pronoun to refer to themselves may prefer they and their instead of his or her. Likewise, the writer should follow the personal pronoun of individuals they write about if individuals' pronouns are known. They may be used in a singular sense or a person's chosen pronoun. For example, you can state Simons is writing their research paper on Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. In addition to this use of they to refer to specific individuals, they has gained acceptance as a generic third person singular pronoun used to refer to by hypothetical or anonymous people. So it is accepted. Each taxpayer must file their tax return by 30 November. There is accepted there. So see, sometimes what we normally do, we put his or her. Let us prefer there, which is non-generic. Okay. So singular, they can be used to refer to a specific person whose gender is unknown or not relevant to the context. In formal writing, the use of singular they has been considered a, a less desirable option than revising to plural constructions or rephrasing without pronouns. But it has emerged as a tool for making language more inclusive because it helps writers avoid making or enabling assumptions about gender. We need to be wary of making assumptions about our audience. And let us not assume that our audience need to share our own identity, background, geographic location, culture, or beliefs. So language such as in our society, intergenerational households are no longer common and we value free market economics above all, assumes a common culture or set of shared beliefs. For this reason, consider avoiding the first person plural we and our in your writing. If you do use we and our, ask yourself whether your language makes it clear who is included and whether any readers are excluded. The next point is avoid negatively judging others' expressions. When writing about a person who has a disability or health condition or who has experienced a trauma, avoid descriptions like suffers from, afflicted with, prisoner of, or victim of. Although appropriate in some contexts, such language can evoke emotions that may not be accurate. For example, a person who uses a wheelchair should not be described as wheelchair bound or he is confined to a wheelchair, because such statements make assumptions about the person's experiences. Then the last principle, use a dictionary to check for offensive terms. If you are uncertain about using a term, first look in a recent dictionary. A good up-to-date dictionary will note when a term is considered offensive or questionable. We have to keep in mind that language is constantly changing. The connotations of words and phrases shift over time. Offensive terms that feature in a work you are discussing should never be repeated as your own words, and when quoted from a source may merit a note to indicate that the term is offensive. You can also add a dash after the first letter of a term to avoid reproducing it fully. A decent alternative, a respectful alternative may be available for use when you discuss. So we need to be careful of these principles. When we follow these principles of inclusive language, we may find our product, we may find the quality of our research an excellent one. These are the points that I would like to highlight during this session. Thank you. If you have any discussion, if you want to have any kind of discussion, you can have. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, sir. Any of the participant, do you have anything to ask? Any questions related with sir's topic? Yes, participant?
I'll be meeting them again tomorrow. Also, they can even post their questions in the chat box.
Yes, participant, you can post your questions in the... Sir, it was a very relevant insight, sir. Sir, the various sensitizations, sir, the various aspects that you brought forth is very important for each one of us. The principles of inclusive learning itself is very much needed, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So participant, is there any questions? Would you like to add anything?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Sir, I want to add this key. What are the common mistakes while doing the research we commit? You have guided us for those. Thanks a lot. These are the common language mistakes we commit in our researches. You are from a language background and I am from a social sciences, and in social sciences we always commit these type of minor mistakes. You have guided us, sir, enlightened us. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for your deliberation, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, any more participant? So I believe there's no more doubts. I thank you, sir, Rajaraman, for your valuable time and your valuable insights, sir. We look forward for another session, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.